50 feet from Syria. I, I would love to talk at least a little bit about this film. Um, First, high level, can you tell what this documentary is about?
Yeah, it was early in the Syrian uprising, and we returned to the Syrian-Turkish border with a Syrian-American orthopedic surgeon who was volunteering operating on refugees as they flowed across the border from Syria into Turkey. And it was an attempt at the time, before a lot of films had come out about the conflict, to really show again the effects of the war on civilians. You've heard me echo that sentiment multiple times now, but people knew there was a major conflict in Syria, but didn't really understand the form that was taking and the impact it was having. And so we embedded into at the time, it was the only clinic in Turkey that was sanctioned by the Turkish government to treat Syrian refugees. And so we filmed there with surgeons as they operated on war victims. And we also went into Syria, into some of the camps as well.
So in this film, there's a man who crosses the border every day to retrieve the wounded and ferry them safety and care. And you also mentioned about heroism in the United States. Can you tell me about this man and just people like him? Like, what's the heroic action in some of these places that you've visited?
So in that instance, I thought of him as the Turkish Schindler, right? Because here was a human being who, of his own volition, no one was paying him to do this, but he was spending much of his time. He was just a local businessman who really saw the need in the camps right across the border, 10K away. And he saw the medical need in particular and how hard it was to get people in desperate medical conditions across the border where there was a clinic just right across the border. But because of the security and the layers of security, they couldn't get out by themselves. Mm-hmm. So he took it upon himself as a Turkish person to build relationships with the Turkish guards, which was relatively easy. And then he built relationships with sort of the guards in the no man's land between the Syrian guards and sort of those who lived in the middle area. And then also with the Syrian guards at the camp. And he would drive out there daily and bring them food, right? Talk them up and build relationships. And so every day he would bring these guards food and build relationships with them. And what that meant was eventually, right, he had this avenue of access to and from the camps. And so he started using it. And he would drive this avenue of access through the 3 layers of guards each day. And then they would open the gates for him because he had made himself trustworthy in their eyes. And he would receive the most desperate medical cases that were coming from all over northern Syria, right, to receive medical treatment. And he would, as you see in the film, he would ferry them into the back of his car, mm-hmm. right, and then drive them to the hospital where they would receive operations. And then he would bring them back if they wanted, after they'd healed and recovered, back to Syria if they wanted to return post-recovery. And, he didn't get paid for that. He was spending his own money to do it because he saw other human beings in need. And it's like we were talking about earlier. That's heroic, right? That's selfless. That's aspirational for me, right? Here's someone who is spending their time on the planet doing something of value and good to other human beings.
I mean, if you draw parallels to Schindler, I feel like the fascinating thing about Schindler is that he's kind of a flawed human and is not the kind of human that does these things usually.
Yeah.
But he just can't help it.
Yeah.
And that's like the basic humanity. Despite who you are, the basic humanity shines through.
I think the whims of war test people in those ways, right? Yes. They ask of you things that you may not even know were going to be asked of you. And then it speaks to who you are fundamentally as a human being.
They reveal who you are as a human being, just as you said.